So my name's Lucas. I'm the product marketer here at Credo AI, and I'm so excited for the content of today's webinar, Tracking Trusted AI Adoption and Innovation Through Governance. I'm mostly excited because of our subject matter experts we have with us, Yomna Elsayed and Anna Smith at Cisco. Yomna's here at Credo AI. If you each just want to introduce yourself briefly and talk about what you do, Yomna, you can go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Yomna Elsayed, and I lead user research at Credo AI. My job is to deeply understand the challenges that AI governance professionals go through, whether it's internal resistance, operationalizing standards, or aligning stakeholders, and to surface those pain points up to the Credo AI team and the experts there to translate them into practical tools and strategies that can help AI governance become real and not just aspirational.
And my name is Anna Smith. I'm the lead AI governance architect at Cisco, and I collaborate and consult our AI engineers, data scientists, designers to develop AI more securely, safely, and effectively.
Amazing. So if anyone has a question throughout the webinar, you can submit questions via the Q&A button on the Zoom options. And our experts here, clearly they are experts. So like any questions about AI governance or the content, please submit and we'll take them at the end. Also, potentially I'll be responding live to questions via chat. So that's an option as well. All right, let's get into it. Yomna, next slide, please. So I'm just going to quickly kick us off. At Credo AI webinars, we like to kind of share a temperature check, have our finger on the pulse of just AI in general. So there's a lot of reports that we read to do that. So I'll dive right into that. And then Yomna will review these 10 gold standard metrics for AI governance outcomes that she pioneered. And Anna will talk a little about governance best practices at Cisco, where they are enablers. So it's a really exciting positioning. Next slide, please. All right, AI Pulse Check Q3 2025. So looking ahead into the next quarter, you can go to the next slide. And I just want to surface these three insights from three of the major kind of AI reports that come out, especially around executive and enterprise AI governance. And frankly, these stats really show the pains of no or slow governance. There's a lot of sunk costs, a lot of inefficiency, a lot of opportunity costs lost to not deploying AI correctly. And governance is an essential foundation as part of that. So the first stat is that executives are finding they can't show AI ROI. 25% of AI initiatives have delivered expected ROI, 75% have not over the past 3 years. And that's from a report of 2,000 CEOs interviewed. And the second stat around Gen AI projects not making it to production, there's a bunch of reasons for this, but governance is super central to them, right? It's like redundancy of using different models, the model version changes, so the risks change. Like it's such a moving target without governance. And then lastly, the Stanford High Index Report 2025, Human AI. The AI incidents are rising sharply, like kind of outpacing the growth of AI because the smarter and more varied these models and use cases get, the more potential risks there are. So oversight becomes even more critical. So I think that you can hit the next slide, Yomna. These reports and insights, looking into Q3 2025 are really solved by enterprise AI governance. And hopefully we can illustrate that a little bit today. Because the benefits of enterprise AI governance is that you can innovate with AI quickly, you can scale it rapidly and uniformly aligned to your business goals. You can be cost effective and ensure that AI ROI, because a lot of the money lost to AI is in the training and pre-deployment. And then, of course, we care a lot about trust at Credo AI. So maintain trust in your AI from the public, from regulatory rising kind of constraints, and internally. So many companies are having internal tools entirely powered by AI, and your employees need to be able to trust them. So today, we're going to talk about how quantified AI governance drives trusted AI adoption with Yomna's incredible work and Anna's making it real. So Yomna, take it away.
Thank you so much, Lucas. So today I want to share with you our 10 gold standard metrics. And like Lucas said, the aim is to provide actionable insights at scale, is to help AI governance team measure the impact of governance, thereby making AI governance not just a program of oversight, but also a driver for trusted AI adoption. And our approach to coming up with those 10 gold standard metrics is that we relied on three main sources of input. One, direct feedback from customers who are looking to speed up adoption, all while managing risk responsibly. And second, we took that in, we engaged with AI governance experts to ensure that these metrics are well aligned with leading frameworks and regulatory standards such as the EU AI Act and NIST AI RMF. And third, we anchored those metrics in value propositions of what we consider to be a successful AI governance program. Those would be trusted AI adoption, scalable risk management, control and oversight, and regulatory compliance. So with these combined inputs, we can ensure that these metrics are both practical, standards aligned, and purpose-built. But you must be wondering, like, why gold standard metrics? Isn't this another form of red tape? And there is always this tension between wanting to move fast and innovate, all while you want to stay safe. And we get that tension. And because of that, we build these metrics to sort of strike a balance between bold innovation and responsible oversight. So we're not just tracking the activity that's going on in the AI governance program, we're also showing whether governance is actually working. So for example, are you reducing the risk? Are we building trust in the products that we're building? Are we enabling responsible delivery? And in doing that, we're basically helping everyone see what's happening and why. So there is this transparency built into these metrics, and that builds alignment, it builds accountability, and it builds confidence in the AI products. And so ultimately, the AI governance professionals can do their jobs better by surfacing the friction and also measuring the impact. But the devil is in the details, of course. How do we measure the ROI of governance? And we are under no illusion that this is an easy question to answer. Measuring ROI for AI is hard. According to a recent Deloitte survey, 41% of organizations struggle to define and measure ROI of generative AI. And measuring the ROI for AI governance is even harder because, according to a PwC survey, difficulty quantifying risk mitigation from responsible AI programs is the biggest challenge facing companies seeking to invest in responsible AI. That's why we took it upon ourselves at Credo AI to sort of understand what kind of metrics do AI governance professionals need to track in order to ensure that their processes are efficient and showcase the ROI of their governance programs to their stakeholders and leaders. To make that happen and to make it attainable, we divided these metrics across four main dimensions that our customers told us they care about. They are trusted AI adoption and enablement, they are governance efficiency, they are risk compliance and oversight, and stakeholder engagement. I'm going to dive deeper into each one of these in detail. So the first one, and arguably the most foundational one, is trusted AI adoption and enablement. This is very important, especially with generative AI, because no matter how advanced your model is, if they are not trusted or not making it into production, they're not creating value. That's why scaling remains to be a major hurdle. For example, according to Deloitte, 70% of organizations have moved 30% or fewer generative AI experiments to production. This is not just a statistic that we're seeing in a survey. This is something that we are witnessing with many of the people who come to us as prospects. When they dive deeper into why there is this scaling hurdle, key blockers to scaling included risk concerns, regulatory pressure, and governance gaps. But luckily, trust does drive adoption. And so when you have a strong governance program, it will de-risk your initiatives. It will give the business leaders and compliance teams the confidence to move forward with AI initiatives, and thereby governance will be enabling scale, and scale is where AI starts to pay off. So I want to dive deeper into how we can actually measure trusted AI adoption and enablement. The first one is the number of AI use cases approved for deployment per month. This metric can be a strong indicator of how governance is enabling responsible deployment at scale. And I want to emphasize here that it's not just any use cases, it's governed use cases. So it's use cases that you can rely on, that you can feel confident about. But not everyone, not every organization is at that level of maturity where they're about to deploy or about to move things into production. Some companies and some AI governance programs, they're still in the very beginning and they want to showcase their impact. And therefore, growth in the number of AI use cases registered over time can be that starting point into showcasing how there is an increased level of AI adoption, that people are learning about their programs, that they're not intimidated by their governance process as well. The third one is the time to production for approved AI use cases. That's another valuable metric for trusted AI adoption, because it's not just an indication of oversight, it's an indication of how governance enables downstream deployment of AI solutions. Like how are you integrating with engineering and business workflow? How are you enabling things downstream? You're not just a blocker. So that was for AI adoption, but AI adoption would not be possible without an efficient governance process. That's why it's important to track metrics for that as well. So one of the most important metrics and the most popular ones is the average time to review an AI use case. We hear this a lot from our customers because they want to show that AI governance is not a blocker, that they're increasing as that average time, as it decreases over time, it shows AI maturity, it shows AI governance maturity. And when you extrapolate that average time with other dimensions, think, for example, about the risk. If that average time for a low-risk use case is high, that can be an indication of inefficiency. If the average review time with a high-risk use case is unusually low, that also is an indication of an inefficiency. If you extrapolate that with the number of use cases, and you always have a steady number of use cases, but all of a sudden you have a high average review time, that's an indication that there is an inefficiency there, and you want to drill down. Are you under-resourced? Are you getting different types of use cases that you need to deal with? So that's for the average time. Another important indicator is the use case approval efficiency, approved versus submitted. Because high efficiency means teams are submitting well-aligned use cases, so it can also be a good proxy for how streamlined your process is, how streamlined your UX is. And so both metrics are important. And of course, we are under no illusion that this is going to be 100%. We don't want 100%. We want something between 70 to 80%, where, AI low-risk use cases are fast-tracked, whereas the high-risk use cases are either highly scrutinized or rejected for not abiding with the governance rules. And of course, we can be talking about governance impact without measuring how well it helps us be compliant and mitigate risk. So addressing, for example, the percent of AI use cases compliant with key regulations is going to be key in showing your stakeholders that you're tracking against the EU AI Act, you're well tracking against a New York City Law 144, or whatever laws that you need to be tracking against. The second one is the percent of mitigation effectiveness by risk type. According to NIST AI RMF, we need to be tracking mitigation effectiveness throughout time. And so one way of doing that is to calculate the average percent reduction in risk, inherent versus residual, and track it again by risk category over a rolling time window. So that will enable you to do something like, say, we reduced fairness risk by 40% across use cases reviewed in Q2. This is also very valuable because, if you divide it by risk type, you can have different departments looking at the different types of risk. The third one in risk and compliance oversight is the time to resolution for the risk and compliance issues. And that's very important because we're not only about flagging risk, but also getting better at responding to them. So TTR should decrease over time. It's indication that your governance processes are enabling your stakeholders to actually mitigate against risk, to actually respond to risk. And it's a sign of AI governance maturity as well. This is all very important. It becomes critical to the value realization of AI because by 2027, 60% of organizations will fail to realize the anticipated value for their AI use cases due to incohesive ethical governance frameworks. But all of this would not be possible without securing organizational buy-in. And by buy-in, we mean the perceived value and usability of your governance program, especially from the people who don't own governance but are critical to making it work. Think about, for example, legal, product, data science, compliance. Those teams are very important and you want to have their buy-in. And so while automation is super important and key to driving fast and smooth processes, it's the people behind the process who build and sustain the stakeholder buy-in. And so we have to be able to measure that over time because it's key and critical to the success of the AI governance program. So percent of teams participating in AI governance will be crucial to capturing adoption across the business units. The number of monthly active users, we call them the governance MAU or governance monthly active users. That's very important to track the volume of engagement that you're getting to your governance program. So think of these sort of the breadth and the depth. You want to hit both. And some people might argue, like, how is this showing impact for me? And I would say that this is showing a lot of impact because the more teams are participating and the more people in these teams are participating, the more embedded your governance program is, and it increases your surface of coverage, and it means that people are trusting your AI governance program. It reduces the likelihood of something like shadow AI, and it reduces the likelihood of reputational damage. So I can't stress enough the importance of these metrics. There are other things that contribute to the ROI of governance that are not necessarily monthly metrics. Think about the AI portfolio value under governance. This will help you quantify the scale of AI initiatives that are benefiting from your oversight and trust. Think about the speed of AI-driven product sales. Talk to your sales and marketing teams to see how your governance is accelerating the market confidence and time to revenue for your AI products. A big one is the estimated value of avoided fines, captures the risk mitigation and cost savings tied to regulatory compliance. All these things combined with the gold standard metrics can help you tell a good ROI narrative and a strong positioning for governance as both a safeguard against risk and a catalyst for growth. But metrics don't live in a vacuum. That's something that we like to emphasize because they only work when they are embedded in an organizational process, in a culture that values accountability and efficient governance. So how do you get there and how do you create impact that you are proud to measure and proud to show? That's why I'm excited to be joined by Anna, who's not just thinking about AI governance, but actually doing it at scale in one of the largest tech companies to share with us some real world lessons and best practices to get to that impact. And I'll pass it off to you, Anna.
Thank you. I'm excited to get my hands on those metrics and to see what that can do for us at Cisco. Well, if you know me, I might be a broken record when I say that responsible AI is better AI. And I'm on a mission to convince all of our engineers and everyone at Cisco of this fact. And that has been just top of mind for us as our AI governance program is maturing. We're thinking of things like, how can we be more intentional and provide a quality service to our high-risk use cases? But then how can we provide efficiency, but yet still visibility and monitoring into our low-risk use cases? So I'm happy to share a few best practices with you today of some things we've learned along the way. Next slide, please. So the first best practice is proportional governance based on risk. And this ties into a bit of what Yomna was sharing before, but essentially this allows us to triage risk early on in the process with a short intake questionnaire. That way we can allow those low risk use cases to go off to continue experimenting or deploy internally to a small few users or whatever the case may be that resulted in its low risk. Then it allows us to provide a more thorough, intentional experience for those that are high risk. Do we need to have in-depth brainstorming conversations? I'd love to get a demo of that product. Let's talk about different mitigation strategies. Every week someone comes to us with something new. So this AI governance is far from black and white and definitely involves a lot of customized guidance. And so we need to be able to provide that where we're really going to add value, but then allow us to be enabling much quicker for those that are lower risk. And so the triage is essential to that, and then from that triage, we are actually able to inventory all use cases regardless of risk. As I mentioned, is so important for monitoring and visibility into our use cases and metrics, of course, but then provide that risk management and compliance only to the extent needed. And so we also kind of have this middle ground as well. So we have, the low risk, they move quickly, the high risk, much more intentional. And then we have medium. So we are able to provide that hybrid approach to governance where there's a bit more gray area as well. And lastly, creating a risk framework to standardize those governance requirements. So you need to have a standardized idea of what is high risk. And of course, that can depend on risk tolerance of the company, but it's important that we're being consistent in how we are providing AI governance. Next slide. All right, best practice number 2, and this one's tailored to AI vendors. So we try to deduplicate to scale, and what that means is we can greenlight specific vendors for multiple use cases. And vendors, a lot of times, they carry the same kind of inherent risks, regardless of use cases. They might be tailored to specific use cases, so we don't need to review every single person who says, hey, I want to use vendor X, I want to use that one too. They're likely, sharing same inherent risks. So we're able to expedite that, give a green light to that tool, and then publicize use guidance to help the user mitigate inherent vendor risks at the use level, and then also have them agree and attest to the fact that they understand the risk and that they're willing to implement those mitigations. Next best practice. All right, lastly, but most important in my opinion, is marketing yourself as an AI enabler. And this is key to building trust within the company. You need them to understand why we're doing what we're doing. I think it's super easy to fall into this trap of, people coming to you, oh, what do I have to do to get a green light? Oh, how can I be compliant? Is this approved? But they don't really understand what that approval actually means. And they kind of forget what we're here for. And so we kind of are taking a step back, rebranding ourselves as AI governance as enablers and helping them to understand that really, we're building AI that is more effective, more reliable, and better meets the needs of your intended users. And so in order to do that, our marketing campaign started with our AI governance roadshow. So we're going out. Cisco has 80,000 employees. So it's easy to get lost in the crowd, but we kind of keep ourselves front and center. And we've created this roadshow where we're a presentation to all the AI governance team members, We go to all of our key business groups and give a presentation on what AI governance is, what we do, why it's so important, the AI regulatory landscape, and how they can reach us. And we found this to be really effective because when you put yourself in front of them, you become a trusted consultant. Next time something comes up, they're a bit more proactive in reaching out. Next is being accessible. So we make ourselves almost accessible to a fault. And we like to be available. Everyone knows how to reach out to us. We've got an email that is distributed to all of team members, and everyone knows that email handle. And then we have our office hours. So 3 times a week, our team has scheduled time where anyone at Cisco can come and book with us. And we are always booked out and booked out 2 to 3 weeks in advance most of the time. And people love to come to us with their questions. It tends to be a lot more efficient and effective rather than sending an email. They get a friendly face to help them work through their issue. And like I said, AI governance is complex. So a lot of times that face-to-face, we're able to tackle those issues much easier, much more effectively. But yeah, in general, positioning yourselves as a collaborator in AI enablement rather than a compliance checkbox or a blocker really is the success to maturing the AI governance program and really meeting our goals.
Fantastic, Anna. I love the how complimentary it is to talk about metrics and then give examples of making it real and kind of the strategies you have to get creative with to achieve those metrics. I absolutely love that. So the way Q&A works is if anyone has a question, you can on the Zoom options panel hit Q&A and type it in. We do have a number of questions sitting in the queue. So the way that I'll address this is I think I'll try and ask aloud and kind of like, MC here. Some of the more broad questions, there are questions like that specifically say Yomna or Anna. So you guys, if you could monitor the Q&A chat and like it's your call to say if you want to answer those. So I'll start by asking some of the questions that are there. And then if one of you guys wants to answer one of the ones directly directed at you, you can do so. Otherwise, to the asker, I'll get you the answer over email after we're done. And to any questions we don't get to, that's the case as well. So I love a forecasting question because we are all exhausted trying to keep up at the breakneck pace of innovation. So Yomna, more for you. Joshua has a couple of really good questions, but how do you all see the landscape of AI governance transforming over the next 3 to 5 years, particularly with the advancements of autonomous AI agents? And let's not let's be professional about the product roadmap and not forecasting too far. But you do sit on the product team, Yomna. So do you want to speak to that a little bit on what might happen?
Absolutely. And, governing AI agents is definitely something that everyone is on everyone's mind, not just, generative AI or traditional machine learning. That's something that we're tracking against. So I see that in the future, being able to govern AI agents and thinking about what is the encompassing entity to all these different things, all these governable entities is going to be key. I see also continuous governance to be a very important aspect. We're not just doing a one-time governance of that use case, but we're also monitoring it as it progresses, as the models change over time, as the models drift. How are we keeping tabs on those metrics as things change is going to be also key.
From our side, I can just add a quick comment there as well. Yeah, absolutely. AI agents is the curveball that we totally expect in this job. It's a new one, I swear, every month. But it makes it enjoyable. And I think with agents, as you kind of indicated there, they're autonomous. So our concerns there are around, do you have a human in the loop, particularly when you are dealing with these high-risk use cases, any kind of consequential decision making? That gets a little hairier. And so those are the conversations that we're having on how we can tackle that and mitigate some of those reliability risks.
I love that. Great, first question. And to be a little candid about it, not everyone has a mature AI governance program. And so if you have a bunch of agentic AI and you've replaced a lot of your staff with AI agents, and you're going to feel the pain of the absence of an AI governance program a lot more than you might do today when people are doing chatbots with OpenAI. So I like to be a little spicy there. Okay, next question this is interesting. What's the typical size of a company where AI governance would be a more critical business strategy? We think about that a lot, Yomna, so maybe that lower threshold of where you have enough AI use cases, anything like that. I know you've done a lot of research there.
Yeah, I think AI governance can fit any size, any company that does perform AI initiatives. If you just have one use case, that use case can be risky, can subject you to a reputational damage or regulatory fines. Of course, there is more appetite for AI governance among regulated industry, but with generative AI, this has changed because people are looking forward to innovate with Gen AI. So you could be a startup, you could be an SMB, you could be an enterprise, but you want to innovate with generative AI. But you risk a lot if you do not put the right guardrails ahead of time to understand how it might go wrong. And therefore you subject yourself to a lot of legal or reputational damage when you could have alleviated that. So I would say that whenever you have AI, whenever you have generative AI that has risks that are unaccounted for, no matter the size or the industry, you would want to put guardrails there. The difference would be in the breadth and depth of your AI governance programs and the people who are involved there. While in a small sized company or a startup, it can be a one-man show. You're not going to be worried about the buy-in or the leadership buy-in, but with a larger company, you really have to think about these processes and that organizational change.
Wonderful. I was typing an answer live. Next, interesting broad question. That is so great. And this question is asked many times, always with kind of different wording, but I think of it in terms of benchmarks versus metrics. And so Dennis asked, it's a long, so I'm going to truncate, but there's the business value of AI governance and ROI of AI, and then there's the social value of AI governance. They are linked. So while we talked about measuring AI ROI, how do we measure the social value? And Dennis used the example of fairness. Yomna, I know that our colleague Ian is really his work centers around this, but do you want to mention a little bit about public benchmarks that Credo AI does not set versus these business value of AI governance metrics we shared?
Yeah, I think Ian would be able to speak as to those public benchmarks. I think they're available and we can track against them. What I would say with regards to benchmark, and this is an important thing to note, is that yes, it's important to track metrics and it's important to have good metrics. But what are you benchmarking against? What we do internally at Credo, we do this for our own customers. We can tell them, we can aggregate like the anonymized, of course, the metrics that they bring to us, and we can tell them like this is what what people in this industry are reporting, and this is how you compare to them. So this is the importance of a benchmark that we create internally for these metrics. But of course, there are public metrics, and they can be very specific to specific industries. And I think they are available that we can look for them.
Thanks, Yomna. Didn't mean to put you on the spot there, especially calling out that it is a colleague of ours who's really an expert in this. Dennis, I would look up our model trust scores, which actually was the last webinar we gave, because our colleague Ian Eisenberg has pioneered these model trust scores, and the point of them is to show that different models perform differently across speed, cost, safety, and capability, and by industry. So these all changed from defense to CPG or what have you. So the idea of a benchmark of fairness, you have to take all the context into account. The fairness benchmark exists in several places, I think. But I would check out the Model Trust scores, because Ian did publish an app where you can actually like drop down by industry and see safety metrics, and then understand in the white paper what individual types of safety went into it: bias, fairness, hate speech, stuff like that. So our model trust scores work is really interesting there. All right. Okay, so I love this question from Leah, and I'm sorry I'm paraphrasing people's questions a little bit, but it's a question for us, Credo AI or Anna. But where would we draw the line for what qualifies as AI that needs assessment? And then would an intake form be submitted for things like email spam filters? Anna, do you want to start first? Because I know Cisco thinks a lot about ease of that threshold of, serious risk versus pre-approved.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to the risk tolerance of a particular company or organization. So that absolutely can depend. For us, the beauty of the intake form is it allows us to have a very short registry of AI. So there's low barrier there, but then it allows us to have that monitoring and inventory, which is so important. So you can more broadly require that. It's a very minimal requirement, and you can have more visibility into that. And it also kind of ties into another question. So the question about email spam filters, things like that. There was another question that someone asked around, is your team triaging machine learning models as well and bringing them into governance? So at Cisco, we have had our responsible AI program since around 2020, and that was well before generative AI took off and became really popular. So we have and always will monitor and evaluate all AI, not just generative AI. So that includes machine learning and anything under that AI umbrella.
That's super thorough. Thanks for taking that one, Anna. Did you want to add anything, Yomna?
No, I think everything Anna said tracks for Credo AI as well.
Love that. And I do love the term that you used, Anna, green light, green lighting a particular model, because it also speaks to all of the efficiency lost to using like different models for the same thing. Like 10 teams want to build a chatbot, but they have 10 different models. If you've greenlit a model or a vendor, then you can just like, skate through that so much easier, and you can't do that without governance. Loving all these questions. All right, scrolling through, I think let's do one more, and then I'll take it upon myself to get these answers to you guys over email. And Anna and Yomna, any favorites on your end? I don't want to have to pick them all, but I'm happy to pick the last one because I love them. I guess I could ask, Joshua asked another great question. Joshua, you asked really good questions around the balance. Finding the right balance in governance is crucial. Too slow, AI stagnates in endless tasks. Too fast, and we lose public trust. How do we ensure progress while maintaining confidence? And I want to double click, because you both said during the webinar that balance is important, but maybe could you share actionable ways to measure that? What is too slow if it's not that high of risk? et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure you've both seen this in practice.
I can take a stab at that. So one way where you absolutely, Joshua, um, these metrics are a lot, and we cannot imagine that a company will be able to do or measure all these metrics at once. And at the same time, taking just one of these metrics and trying to measure it and optimizing for speed is losing the context. And like you said, like, it can be we're optimizing for approvals while at the same time we're losing the risk management. And that's where we draw the line. Like, we have to balance the measurement of, for example, the approvals of the AI use cases that are going into production, but also we're balancing it with how well are we doing in terms of risk mitigation and compliance. So this is where we use these metrics as you might not be able to use all of them because of the level of AI governance maturity, the specific sector industry you're in. For example, retail might be optimizing for speed, but financial might be optimizing for things such as legal compliance and how well you're doing in terms of the percentage of your use cases that are compliant with a certain regulation. So it's sort of a template that you can pick and choose from, and you create that balance based on what you know of your industry and what you're prioritizing as important metrics to track that align with your business KPIs as well.
Anna, feel free to add a comment, or if Yomna's answer was thorough enough, no pressure.
Yeah, I think in general, it goes back to the tailored governance based on risk, which was kind of my first best practice, right? So being able to slow down and be more intentional with governance where we see fit. And if we can be more proactive in getting into the development process earlier, one thing we implement is kind of these roadmap sessions with our product teams. We want to know before you're developing it because we don't want to slow you down, right? Like if something's going to become risky, let's talk about it now. Let's build this AI governance by design rather than having to do it on the back end. And that can keep us from being any kind of blockers or slowing down progress. But then also, for those low risk, we're allowing them to move forward with minimal governance.
What a fantastic closing answer, Anna. I love that. The pain of governance and this whole imbalance or stagnation, the word Joshua used, is so much worse if governance is not brought in early. And I know for so many on the call and so many out there feeling those initial, executive pains of AI management at all, they don't have mature governance programs. And so we're making the case that it really helps. So thank you, everyone, for coming to today's webinar. And thank you so much to our speakers. It was brilliant. We have the recording. I'll share the recording, and hope everyone has a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.